Welcome back. While the rest of the country is already experiencing increased rolling blackouts, the Ethekwini municipality remains unaffected by Eskom's failure to keep the country's lights on. According to officials, Ethekwini will only start bearing the brunt a month from now. Let's go to eNCA senior reporter Dasen Thathiah, who is looking at the story for us to explain it further. Dasen, exactly why are we seeing Ethekwini not experiencing rolling blackouts?
Maseko, I started my morning with that bad news when I spoke to the head of electricity in Ethekwini, Maxwell Mthembu, saying that we will now be experiencing load shedding, well, at least within the next month. But you'll know that this comes after the floods that we've had here. All of the infrastructure that was damaged as a result of that. The water infrastructure was just half of the problem. The other half was obviously around electricity, with the city losing about half of its supply during that time. So it took a lot for officials to get those systems back online. They've managed to get most of it back, but we still have a shortfall. And that's why when we spoke to Mthembu earlier, he said it was effectively that Ethekwini was load shedding, but unintentionally, because it's now not using the normal electricity supply or the load that it would normally use on a normal day prior to the floods. So let's listen into what he had to say. That's Maxwell Mthembu, about why we are here and exactly what has happened in relation to that exemption.
We are not actually exempted from load shedding. We had a disaster in Ethekwini in April. So that disaster actually never came to an end. By the time we're trying to survive and come out of it, another one hit us in May. So that means we had two disasters coming in Ethekwini. Now, we lost between 700 and 800 megawatts of power at the time. That's where we're trying to survive or recover from up to now. As of today, we still don't have more than 200 megawatts of power. If we compare June or July as last year at this time. So we lost more than 200 megawatts. If we look at the 200 megawatts, it is an equivalent of what load shedding is today. That means that since April flooding, we have been actually on a severe load shedding compared to anybody else in the country. Yes, it's true that we look like we're exempted, but like you're saying, you're not using the word exempted because we're not exempted. The issue is that we've written a letter to National Control and to Eskom explaining our situation. And we agreed with both National Control and Eskom that we are going to be out of load shedding for now. And actually, we're busy now with the schedule because we are also concerned that we cannot, as a Ethekwini, not participate in load shedding just to avoid the collapse of the national grid. We are going to participate in load shedding.
And Dasen, did you manage to speak to anybody who lives in Ethekwini? What do they think?
Well, I think it was pretty easy to preempt this one, and it certainly wasn't good news for many of the people that I spoke to, myself included. As I said, I got that bad news this morning, but those that we've spoken to shared those sentiments. But the one common thread that I'm getting is that we are not ready, and that's because of the widespread damage that was caused by the floods. It's important to stress at this point that the electricity department was also saying to us that it wasn't that Eskom had taken pity on the city. It was out of necessity that we couldn't be involved in the load shedding up until this point. So residents saying that we need more time, we need to get the city back up to scratch first before we can implement any load shedding. Let's listen to what they had to say to us. Do you believe so?
Well, I don't think that we are ready for load shedding stage 6. Durban and KZN has been under a lot of pressure. We've been affected a lot with the floods and also the looting as well. We are still recovering from that. So having to have load shedding stage 6, it wouldn't do justice to the KZN residents. Like for instance, we're just recovering from the economy of Durban and KZN as well. We are still doing the recovery.
Sihlukumezekile kakhulu ngoba manje load shedding sibuya kwi-COVID, then monkeypox, bese indaba ye-COVID, indaba yogesi nje kakhulu iyasihlukumeza kakhulu. Manje
even households emakhaya, I'm sure izobaphatha kabuhlungu nayo, ngeke bese into e-right. Since ibuya we must prepare kodwa ke, but akusinto e-right ukuthi ngabuya kodwa.
Akukho right.
And Dasen, it's so sad to see South Africans this depressed. One of the people you spoke to even mentioning monkeypox. It looks like we're just not being given a break. But, you know, what's the city saying about the repairing of the infrastructure that was damaged in April?
So look, these two things are going to be happening concurrently. The one is that the load shedding that will be taking place, you're expected to start in August. That'll be under very special circumstances and conditions designed to take into account that the infrastructure is not ready and it's very fragile right now. So any bad moves could seriously hamper the grid here. So that's an agreement that's happened between Eskom and the municipality, where they're saying that they're going to monitor this regularly. They're going to make sure that they touch base regularly to make sure that nothing is done wrong there. But in the interim, there'll also be a repair, which is expected to run into millions. And that will happen over the next 3 years. And that's to bring back the city to where it was and to ensure that it has the full supply that it used to have before the floods. Let's listen to Maxwell and Tembo on this one.
Our substations that are going to totally exclude on load shedding because we cannot do load shedding in any way. Those are just temporary substations like Maranridge. So the people in Maranridge who suffered for 3 weeks or so without power, now they are not going to experience load shedding at all for the next 3 years because they have to redo the entire substations. But it's not the only one. I'm just mentioning that because it was the most severe one where we, after all the flooding that took place, we also had the substation getting bent down to ashes. So we're now going to be rebuilding from scratch. In Ethekwini alone, we're looking at about 3 years because to fix a substation, that's how much time we need to build. We're like rebuilding our substations anew. Of course, there are existing some of them, but we bypassed is extremely compromised. So we need about 3 years. And the good news is that Ethekwini did give us a budget. Our council did give us the budget. We're starting now in just of July. We're starting now to go and get the procurement for such, and we're going to be rebuilding these substations. There's a lot of them.
All right, Dasen Thathiah, senior reporter, with that update for us. Let's leave it there for now.